Okay, we move on to item 9, page 20 of the agenda, which is Canada Water Regeneration. And I look to Councillor Mark Williams, Cabinet Member for Regeneration and New Homes, to introduce this report.
Thank you very much, Chair. So this report, as set out, agrees, proposes for us today to agree the revised heads of terms with British Land, which will underpin the delivery of over 3,000 new homes at the Canada Water Master Plan site, along with 2 million plus square foot of non-residential uses, huge increase in employment. As you recall, we agreed the previous heads of terms nearly 2 years ago now, and this report reflects the huge amount of work that Steve and John and the team have been undertaking since then. The main points that I'd just like to draw out is that rather than having a very complex agreement that will enable the regeneration to happen, this simplifies the land holdings and simplifies our commercial agreement with British Land, so that we take a 20% stake across all of the 3 main plots of land rather than a 50, a 5 and a 0% interest in the 3 main pieces of land there, which will enable this project to come forward in a more holistic way, driven by good design principles rather than land ownership, the current land ownership arrangements. It also enables the council to continue to receive significant, to be able to invest into this project, so that we can continue to receive significant funds back from the project over the future years, and it enables the council a certain amount of flexibility on whether to invest into the scheme or not in 5, 10, 15 years, etc. The report also sets out instructing officers to work with British Land on a social regeneration charter for the area, working with residents and tying very much in with the work that Councillors Situ and Anderson are going to be talking about later on in the agenda, and also agrees that British Land should undertake public consultation on options for entering into long-term arrangement for the management of various areas of public realm, in particular the dock and the area outside Canada Water Library, and see what local residents think about that, and getting investment into those spaces and much better management than there currently is, because that will be the gateway into this project, which is absolutely key. And again, I'd just like to thank everybody, all the officers involved, for a huge amount of work over the last 18 months or so to get us to where we are.
Thanks, Mark. Steve or John, anything you'd like to add? This is an important decision that we're being invited to take today for the future of this project.
Absolutely. It's only a relatively minor change from the previous heads of terms, which were agreed by Cabinet approximately 2 years ago, but it is a significant change, and if you like, recast our transaction with British Land, and I think is a really smart way for both parties to proceed in an aligned manner to deliver what I think is one of the most exciting projects in Southwark, if not London, if not the UK, to develop an exciting new town centre, if not the world. To develop a fantastic new town centre for Southwark at Canada Water for the benefit of existing and future residents. The new transaction really reflects, I think, the assets the council is putting into the transaction, those being its freehold interest in the print works and the shopping centre. And through this transaction we also gain an additional asset, and that's an interest in the mass leisure park, which we don't have at the moment. So I often come to Cabinet and I'm accused of selling the family silver. We're actually adding to the family silver in this case by adding an additional asset, and the council will effectively have a 20% holding of the full 46 acres at Canada Water where the new town centre will be delivered. I think it resolves the new transaction issues we had around delivery of social infrastructure across the town centre. So in some ways now it's irrelevant where new parks go, where new roads go, where the leisure centre goes, as long as it goes within the 46 acres. As the land interests are aligned, it's really irrelevant where those facilities are provided. And it also, I think, enables the council to actually take up its investment options, which Mark mentioned, as, if you like, the investment profile over the 15-20 years is going to be a lot smoother, given the, if you like, the equalisation of our interest across the town centre. I will just also mention, which is, I'm sure Professor Kevin will speak about the social regeneration report later on the agenda, but in addition to the change in the heads of terms, we are saying we're going to commit to working with British Land in bringing forward a social regeneration charter for Canada Water The principal purpose being to ensure that the benefits from the town centre are felt across the whole community at Canada Water, not just for the new people moving into the new town centre, but for existing residents in and around the peninsula and Canada Water throughout Bermondsey and Rotherhithe.
Thanks, Steve. That's really, really helpful. Okay, comments or questions on this? Richard and Maisie. And
Thank you. Yeah, it's a really interesting report. I think some really good stuff in here. I think the commitment to social regeneration is something really welcome. And also the commitment under paragraph 17 around affordable housing, about ensuring that this is something that's policy compliant. So in terms of the 3,500 homes that we're going to get there, having 35% of those being affordable, of which 70% will be a social rent. So I make that 858 socially rented properties that we'll be getting out of this. So I just wanted to my understanding is that the Cabinet will be looking at this further before anything goes forward in terms of planning permissions. I just wanted to test when that was likely to be, and anything else you might want to say about the issue about affordable housing and how we get to that ambitious but very much welcome target.
We plan to come back to Cabinet with a full report in February. That will be prior to entering into a formal transaction with British Land. The intention will be then that a plan application will follow 28 days following, if you like, legal exchange of contracts. We will have approval of the plan application prior to submission, so we'll know exactly what British Land are proposing to develop out at Canada Water. And absolutely our intention is for a policy compliant affordable housing offer. It may be slightly different to a traditional approach because there may well be some build to rent product within Canada Water where our policies are slightly different, which are going through, if you like, that formal consultation process where an element could potentially be discounted market rent rather than traditional social rent. But that's being worked through at the moment and we'll report on more fully on that in February.
Maisie.
Thanks very much, Chair. I wanted to commend the inclusion of social regeneration in this report at this stage. I think it's absolutely brilliant that we are already demonstrating that social regeneration is a thread that's running through everything we're doing across the council, and not least on such a huge flagship important regeneration scheme. The wording in the report is that officers are going to work together with BL to create the social regeneration charter. I just wanted to kind of push you a little bit more on what that might look like, what that working arrangement will be, and in particular how existing communities will be at the heart of that process, because the essence of the process that Councillor Sitter and I will talk about a bit later is community-centred regeneration. So of course the existing communities will be at the heart of that charter, I assume.
I will be absolutely honest, it is a work in progress, but we effectively see three phases, if you like, to our approach to social regeneration. The initial phase being, if you like, a research and analysis stage to set a baseline for local communities, which will hopefully identify needs within those local communities, and then we can agree, if you like, a programme of interventions with British Land throughout the lifetime of the project to meet the needs within the communities, with eventually, if you like, the final phase being a wrap-up report of the success or not of the social regeneration charter and programme at Canada Water. I think the intention probably is to, very similar to the social regeneration framework, which you'll be discussing later on, is to focus on probably three main themes, one being health and well-being. That will, if you like, consider physical elements of the project, so that could include the leisure centre, parks, open spaces, promotion of pedestrian and cycle-friendly routes, potentially a doctor's surgery within the town centre, but we'll also identify a series of programmes and, if you like, interventions to identify how health needs in the existing community, whether that's inactivity amongst elderly people, childhood obesity, and we'll develop those programmes, and those programmes will be agreed on an annual basis as part of the governance arrangements around the overall project through a governance board, which ourselves and British Land will sit up on. The second theme is likely to be around education and skills. So obviously we will have, again, some social infrastructure around education and skills, whether that's new teaching accommodation for schools, further and higher education institutions, but also sort of a skills programme in terms of apprentices and construction jobs throughout the length of the project and throughout, if you like, the end of the project. This is a true mixed-use project, which is quite unique across London. Approximately 50% of the floor space will be residential and about 50% will be non-residential, being made up of office accommodation, retail accommodation, leisure and cultural accommodation and educational accommodation. So there will be a lot of jobs actually on site on completion of the project as well. And I think it's important to ensure that local residents have the skills and the education to access those jobs once the project is completed. And I think probably the final theme will be around, if you like, economic activity, ensuring those out of work get back into work, and also ensuring that I think that there's a good value for money offer of services for all residents at Canada Water. And when I say all residents, I just don't mean the new residents moving in, I mean existing residents as well. So there's a good retail and leisure offer which is affordable for all residents in Canada Water, so everybody can benefit from the new facilities coming on stream.
I think also just to add on to what Steve said, it is still a work in progress, so making sure that local residents are at the heart of pulling the charter together and working with our residents, and those residents whose voices necessarily don't always get heard through our consultations is absolutely key.
I don't want to jump ahead to social regeneration, which is going to have a big old chunk of this meeting a bit later on, so we've kind of done that bit here. Jonathan, did I? No, you've done. You go on. It's not social regeneration.
No, it's not social regeneration. But it's looking at just some of the points that Stephen quite rightly highlighted, Steve, is that some of these social outcomes that we're seeing as part of this master plan area work's already being done to address some of that in terms of getting local people into jobs and trying to address some of those skills challenges as well. So just wanted to confirm that some of that work has already been done, and also the point that Councillor Williams was talking about as well is that the benefits going beyond the master plan area as well.
Absolutely, that work is ongoing at the moment. British Land have a programme, if you like, of projects already rolling out on the peninsula, but we also have other projects, if you like, on the peninsula with other developers. So British Land aren't the only developers on the peninsula. We have London Square, we have London and Quadrant, and we have Seller Property with Notting Hill Housing Trust, which all have certain obligations under their Section 106. I think what we're proposing with British Land is to take that stage further and to be a lot more open and transparent about, if you like, setting the baseline and the impacts of the development and the programmes on local residents. And as you say, Mark, really involve local residents, if you like, setting those programmes and those priorities, and be very open and transparent about the impact the development's having on the local community.
Yeah, as councillor for the area and a resident of Canada Water, I do have quite a large interest in this. I suppose going on to the heads of terms and section 5.1.5, and it talks about local people, as Johnson said, around employment, but specifically I know that it's British Land's policy to pay London living wage. However, obviously in the retail provision, is there anything that we can put in there, as we have that 20% stake, that we would only want businesses that pay at least London living wage in there as well? Because obviously if we're creating those jobs for local people, it's only right that they receive a decent wage for doing it.
It's a very good question. It's very difficult to answer, and it's something we have explored. There are legal difficulties in doing that and trying to control employment practices through what will effectively be commercial leases. I think all I can say today is work in progress. We're aware of the issue. I don't think either ourselves or British Land want to support, if you like, low pay in the new town centre at Canada Water, and I think both parties can try to work together to try to give some reassurance around that moving forward.
Okay, anybody else? Otherwise, there are 4 recommendations on page 20 for us to agree. Can we agree those, please? Agree. Thank you very much indeed. Right, the next item is item 10, but I'm then going to take item 30, moving that up because we have officers who need to leave by 5. So let's move on to item 10, and Ian.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, this is the local implementation plan funding for this year. As you know, there's been a 3-year cycle, and the Mayor's agreed to extend it by a further year. We've aligned this to our current transport plan, which obviously promotes cycling. We've also had the recent curbside strategy, which has informed the decisions or the proposals on this particular item. We've also incorporated the mayoral priorities in relation to Vision Zero and healthy streets, as we heard from the public question earlier, concentrating on road safety, air quality and health and well-being. In terms of the specific proposals, most of them are borough-wide, but on pages 55 and 56 you'll see there are 3 locations listed. First is Grove Lane in Camberwell, assisting with the post-TFL scheme on Camberwell Church Street. Long Lane, which covers Chaucer Grange and Cathedral, which is a feasibility study to look at improving the connections between Guy's and the C10 bus. And finally, the Beat the Street initiative in Canada Water to encourage behaviour change in that neck of the woods. So that's all from me. If Pip wants to say anything.
I think if we can look at this year's bid to be encouraging for the future Mayor's Transport Statutory response that we'll be preparing, and we've offered the opportunity to actually do some proper work to come up with programmes that will meet that programme, especially the healthy streets, and it will go towards more integrating different departments working for the health and well-being, as well as active travel, getting fitter, and the local, just so that what's going to happen in Canada Water, the behaviour change will be encouraged at the same time, and if it's successful there, then there's a way we can roll it out to all the other areas, eventually covering the whole borough.
Thank you, Brooke. Thank you. Comments, queries, Deb?
Yeah, again, because of this big street, big Canberra, what exactly is it? Just to give you an idea, because it sounds quite good, being the street, and is it about encouraging more people to walk and sort of use public transport rather than getting their cars and drive? Or am I totally wide off the mark there?
No, that's pretty well it, really. What we there are several boroughs that have started this programme, Hounslow being one, for example. We employ a company that go in and engage with a 7-week programme of activity, intergenerational, starting in the schools, linking with sheltered housing, so that it becomes a way of life that you walk, or you find someone to walk with or to cycle with. We're looking at integrating it with things like people who will use the cargo bikes to be adapted to take your granny out shopping or something, and we thought Canada Water's got so many nice places, and by the time all this regeneration has happened, the whole place will be somewhere where car ownership will be just not necessary, and that's really where the Beat Street will start, and you will be getting a briefing very shortly from me and my colleagues in we're working with our colleagues in leisure and in health and wellbeing to do this, and linking it to our school travel plan programme.
Okay, right. Well, there are recommendations on page 48 and 49. Recommendations 1 to 3 for the Cabinet. Can we agree those recommendations? And I agree recommendations 4 and 5, delegating authority to Cabinet Member to take this forward. Okay, great. Thank you very much indeed, colleagues.